Welcome back to day 2. It's great to see that many of you have made it. We've got a really packed session ahead for you. We're going to deep dive on our products. Liam, my colleagues Liam, Jason, Nick will come up and they'll share respectively what's going on with NGINX Plus, with NGINX Controller, with NGINX Unit. We have some special guests coming on to add a little bit of pizzazz and excitement to the session. But I'd like to start by asking, what is it that brings us all here to Atlanta? What do we have in common? The thing that we all have in common is that we've all taken a gamble. We've all taken a bet. We run a brand survey every year with our users to try and understand how people are using NGINX, how long they've been using NGINX for. And I'm staggered to find that there will be people here in the audience who've been using NGINX for 7, 8, 9 years or more. You all, every time you make a technology decision, you pick a piece of technology that you're going to commit to, you're going to invest in. That is a gamble. There's a trade-off. And you want to make sure that you're making the right decisions. And I hope that the commitment that you've put into NGINX, it's clear that's paying off. NGINX started from humble beginnings, but with an undercurrent of ambition. When Igor first laid the code down and released the project just over 14 years ago, he had a sneaking sense of the potential of this technology. And that sense, despite the humility, was hidden in plain sight. Because NGINX was named NGINX after all, because Igor felt this technology that he had created had the potential to become the engine of the web. And has it? Well, we love our metrics. We love to track how people are using NGINX. And from figures from W3Techs, you can see now, of the 10,000 busiest sites in the world by the Alexa PageRank, of those which present a server header, so W3Techs can determine what software they're running, we've grown over the last 5 years from 25% to 65% user base. NGINX is the technology of choice for the biggest, busiest, most business-critical sites in the world. The market leader for the million busiest sites. Over 300 million sites, 2 million public IPs are running NGINX. Not only is NGINX used at the front of web applications and websites, we're deeply embedded inside. As evidenced from figures from Docker Hub, NGINX is the most pulled application container from the Docker Hub repository. And if you look at developer-focused clouds like DigitalOcean, once again, when they survey the containers and the machines they're running, they see themselves 65% of the web servers that their users deploy on DigitalOcean or NGINX. NGINX, I hope you can feel, was a safe bet. It's the technology that sits behind your company, your business, the industry that you're working in. We keep measuring what's happening to understand, are we doing the right thing? Are we doing the right thing by the community? Are we doing the right thing by our users? And there's one team in NGINX that particularly I want to highlight, because what they achieve is beyond incredible. We have a customer support team. They're co-located with the engineers. And the level of service that they can provide to our subscribers, every time we close a support ticket, we ask people on a scale of 0 to 10, how happy were you with the service you got from our support team? Rolling average of 9.5 out of 10. I can't believe any other support team can achieve that working with customers that are exacting an expert, as you are. We turn things around fast. Our engineers know the product inside out. When customers raise a problem, odds are they've seen the problem or they can diagnose it quickly and they can get a response back. We average less than 30 minutes for initial triage, and in many cases, that response includes a detailed description of what you need to address that problem. This is one of the services that we provide. That it's almost as if you have an NGINX engineer embedded within your own development or operations team. We also survey our users. Every year, we run a brand survey. Rob referenced it yesterday. And there's one question that we always ask, and you've probably seen this question asked many, many times in marketing surveys. We don't ask this question just for the sake of it. There's actually a little bit of science or marketing practice behind it. So how likely would you be to recommend using NGINX to a colleague? You'll see similar questions. They always ask you to score the response on a range of 0 to 10. And what I'd love to do is just try this out here and see how we do, and then I'll explain what this question means. So, of our audience, and granted, you're a little bit self-selecting, how many of you would say you are extremely likely? You've looked at this, you felt a 9 or a 10, I would very happily recommend NGINX to another user or one of my colleagues. Okay, so I'm looking around, so I'm seeing, because I'm going to do the maths in my head. Okay, how many of you, yeah, I like NGINX, but I wouldn't go out of my way. I'd give you a 7 or an 8. Okay, I can't see anybody. All right, interesting. Okay, how many of you are a little bit meh? I might give you a 6. I think it's all right, 6. Or I really don't like NGINX. And I know it's a self-selecting audience, so we're going to take names for whoever raises their hands. Okay, so what we have just done is what's called a net promoter calculation. And brands across the world do this. There are even benchmarks on what a good brand should achieve. And the way we do the net promoter calculation is we take what percentage of the respondents gave us a 9 or a 10. That was 100%. What percentage of respondents gave us a 7 or an 8? And they don't count. And then what percentage of respondents are detractors? They gave us a 0 to a 6. And there were none of you. So on that scale, you've just scored us with a market incredible net promoter score of 100. You take the proponents, the 9s to 10s, you subtract the detractors, and we got 100. So I know it's a self-selected audience. I know we can't put this in a press release or anything like that, but we did do this with a much wider audience. We reached out across our marketing database, across our user email list, and we invited people to contribute. Many of you will have seen a fairly lengthy survey, and we use that information to inform our roadmap, to inform the way that we talk, the themes that we follow, to get a benchmark on how well we're doing. And in the survey, we got a net promoter score of 62. 67 people were promoters. They gave us a 9 or a 10. 5% detractors, and the bit in the middle is discounted. 62 is a very, very strong score. I like it because there are some very large companies who use NGINX very, very heavily. So parts of their business depend on using NGINX. And we got higher than Amazon. We got higher than Google. We got higher than Microsoft. So I think we're doing something right. I'd like to share with you 2 observations. One which came from our user survey, and one which comes from looking at the conference talks that have happened, those that are coming, and what we're seeing in the industry around us. The theme of this year's conference is the journey to microservices. And each year, the last couple of years, we've asked people, how is your organization using microservices? And last year, we saw 29% of people saying they were using them in production. And then working back, some people were using them in development. A good number of people were researching the technology, but hadn't bitten. And almost a third, at that point, weren't using microservices. And you are going through a journey as you begin to look at new technologies, as you get confidence both in the technical capabilities of those technologies and also their fit for your business. And when we asked this question again in 2018, we saw that there was a steady shift across. Those who are looking in development were beginning to put things into production. Research were moving to dev. And the number of people who weren't using microservices dropped from a third to less than 20%. We saw about a third increase in the number of users who are now deploying microservices in production. This is a journey. Everybody is at a different stage in this process. And at NGINX, we're here to go through that journey with you. As we build out our product roadmap, we track how our users are using the technology, the challenges they face, and we look for opportunities to help them. We're well along this journey as well. NGINX is established as the edge, as the north-south load balancer for a huge range of applications. We've invested to build an ingress controller solution and an OpenShift router solution. Those run natively on Kubernetes or on OpenShift and provide a dynamic load balancing solution that responds to how the topology of applications changes on those container platforms. And the service discovery capabilities and the APIs in NGINX Plus make it ideal as an internal router in large, complex environments. We're looking at service mesh, and in the future, you'll see service mesh technology coming from NGINX. As we go through this journey with you, we're here to learn from your experiences, to feed that into our roadmap, and then to provide you the technology you need to succeed. I also want to share with you a little bit of what we've seen of how organizations are using NGINX. There are some fantastic case studies coming up. I'm looking forward to Capital One speaking later today. They evaluated a dozen different API gateways, 8 commercial, 4 open source, trying to find a solution that they could use within their internal payment processing system. And eventually, after a thorough investigation of those dozen solutions, they decided the only way they could get the functionality and the performance that they needed was to do it themselves. They built their own API gateway using NGINX at the core, using Lua to code directly into NGINX, and they were able to deliver a full-featured gateway handling their APIs that met the needs of their stakeholders. It's now processing 2 billion requests a day, and internally, their tokenization engine is managing 12 billion transactions a day. It's peaking at over 2 million a second, running an NGINX. Incredible technology, incredible performance. Or, we looked at how NGINX is driving, it's the engine of the web. I think we can be pretty confident to estimate that now the majority of internet transactions touch NGINX at one point in their journey. Netflix alone, one of our larger users and a great technology partner of us, they drive 15% of the world's downstream internet traffic. These figures come from Sandvine report just a month ago. Or companies like AppNexus. One of the common use cases for NGINX that I have seen over the last few years is when an organization is struggling to make changes to their applications quickly enough. The developers need a new load balancing policy, or authentication, or a change to SSL. And it's a struggle for the developers to get those changes done because that functionality is delivered by a different team, by perhaps a hardware load balancer at the edge of the data center. And for the last few years, we've seen a very strong trend towards taking NGINX and using that as a second-tier load balancer. Developers get direct access to that. Tickets no longer need to be raised. Changes can be made immediately. But the big shift that I've seen in the last couple of years is now that NGINX is not supplanting the hardware load balancers, we're outpowering them. For years, we have been told that you need specialized hardware. You need ASICs and FPGAs to do SSL at speed. AppNexus spoke yesterday about how they were able to rip out their hardware load balancers, put NGINX in place, and get significantly greater performance off-the-shelf hardware at a drastically reduced cost. I've even talked to organizations who can't quite go that far. They have their hardware load balancers are there, they're providing functionality that's hard to pull out, but they can't scale them up. They put NGINX in front of the hardware load balancer to offload SSL from the hardware onto NGINX software in order to get the performance that they need. The fact remains that application delivery is challenging. You need every marginal gain that you can. You need every big step that you can in order to deliver applications successfully so that you can free up your own resources to focus on the engineering that matters to you, to your organization. It makes your development efforts distinct. And for that reason, we're assembling together the technology that we have into a platform. And we'll deep dive on each of these parts of the platform as we go through the rest of today's keynotes. At the core of the platform, of course, is NGINX. At the beginning, it starts with open source. We recognize as we work with the open source community that not everything comes for free. Some things are worth paying for. Our users recognize that, but we also share a debt to the open source community. And we repay that with continual investment back into NGINX open source and other projects. In the last year, the last 12 to 18 months, we've delivered a number of significant features in NGINX open source. And we use that as a way of proving those features within the community before we then bring those features back into our products, such as NGINX Plus. The last 12 to 18 months, you've seen us deliver support for HTTP server push, closing off our HTTP2 capabilities and allowing you to push content dynamically to users based on hints in the NGINX configuration or hints that are provided by the upstream application. We've built gRPC support so that we can terminate, we can inspect, we can understand gRPC requests, and then we can make smart decisions about where to relay each request to, pulling the underlying HTTP2 stream apart, and then multiplexing requests back to the correct destinations. Enhancements in UDP allow you to use NGINX to load balance and stream more and more UDP-based protocols. HTTP mirroring, another feature that was added into open source just about a year ago, allows you to take requests and send copies of requests to other servers. I've heard some great solutions of how people have used this to help migrating applications from one platform to another. They had requests that triggered asynchronous and synchronous operations, and they had to relay those requests to different endpoints at the same time so that those operations could take place. Work to support TLS 1.3 with its faster session resumption, additional ciphers. But when organizations depend so much on NGINX to ensure that their business is successful, many of them will turn to us to help make the most of their commitment. This is why we're here as an organization. And I would like now to dive in to the first part of our application platform. I would like to invite onto stage my colleague Liam. Liam is going to talk to you about what we're achieving with NGINX Plus and some of the exciting capabilities we've brought to market over the last year. So please give a warm welcome to Liam. Thank you.